Richard Henry Lee was an American statesman from Virginia best known for the motion in the Second Continental Congress calling for the colonies' independence from Great Britain. He was a signatory to the Articles of Confederation, and his famous resolution of June 1776 led to the United States Declaration of Independence, which Lee signed. He also served a one-year term as the President of the Congress of the Confederation, and was a United States Senator from Virginia from 1789 to 1792, serving during part of that time as the second President pro tempore of the Upper House. He was a member of the Lee family, a historically influential family in Virginia politics. Early life and education. He was born in Westmoreland County, Virginia to Thomas Lee and Hannah Harrison Lutwell Lee on January 20, 1732. He was raised and came from a line of military officers, diplomats, and legislators. His father, Thomas Lee, was the governor of Virginia before his death in 1750. Lee spent most of his early life in Stratford, Virginia with his family at Stratford Hall. Here he was tutored and taught in a variety of skills, and witnessed the very beginning of political career as his father sent him around to neighboring planters with the intention for Lee to become associated with neighboring men of like prominence. In 1748, at 16, Lee left Virginia for Yorkshire, England, to complete his formal education at Queen Elizabeth Grammar School, Wakefield. Both of his parents died in 1750 and in 1753. After touring Europe, he returned to Virginia to help his brothers settle the estate his parents had left behind. Career. In 1757, Lee was appointed Justice of the Peace in Westmoreland County. In 1758 he was elected to the Virginia House of Burgesses, where he met Patrick Henry, an early advocate of independence. Lee became one of the first to create committees of correspondence among the many independence-minded Americans in the various colonies. In 1766, almost 10 years before the American Revolutionary War, Lee is credited with having authored the Westmoreland Resolution, which was publicly signed by prominent landowners who met at Leedstown, Westmoreland County, Virginia on the 27th of February 1766. This resolution was signed by 4 brothers of George Washington as well as Gilbert Campbell. American Revolution. In August 1774, Lee was chosen as a delegate to the First Continental Congress in Philadelphia. In Lee's resolution on the 7th of June 1776 during the Second Continental Congress, Lee put forth a motion to the Continental Congress to declare independence from Great Britain, which read, "Resolved, that these united colonies are, and of right ought to be, free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is, and ought to be, totally dissolved." Lee had returned to Virginia by the time Congress voted on and adopted the Declaration of Independence, but he signed the document when he returned to Congress. President of Congress. Lee was elected the 6th President of Congress under the Articles of Confederation on November 30, 1784, in the French Arms Tavern, Trenton, New Jersey. On January 11, 1785, Congress convened in the old New York City Hall, and Lee presided over that Congress until November 23, 1785. Although he was not paid a salary for his office as president, his household expenses were paid by Congress in the amount of $12,203.13. Lee's Congress was most active in 1785, passing numerous legislation, including establishing a United States dollar tied to the Spanish dollar as the national currency. His most pressing issue, however, was to settle the states as territories territorial disputes over the Northwest Territory. Throughout his term, Lee remained steadfast that the release of states' territorial claims on the Northwest Territory would enable the federal government to fund itself with land sales. He believed that the urgency of this measure was paramount because borrowing more foreign money was no longer prudent, and he abhorred the movement to establish federal taxes. The sale of these vast federal lands, he concluded, was the nation's only hope to pay off the war debt and adequately fund federal government. Debate began on the expansion of the Ordinance of 1784 and Thomas Jefferson's survey method. Hundreds of 10 geographical miles square, each mile containing 6,086 4/10 of a foot, and subdivided into lots of 1 mile square each, or 850 4/10 of an acre on April 14. On May 3, 1785, William Grayson of Virginia made a motion seconded by James Monroe to change 7 miles square to 6 miles square, and the current U.S. survey system was born. Lee wrote to his friend and colleague Samuel Adams, "I hope we shall shortly finish our plan for disposing of the western lands to discharge the oppressive public debt created by the war, and I think that if this source of revenue be rightly managed, that these republics may soon be discharged from that state of oppression and distress that an indebted people must invariably feel." The states relinquished the right to this test tract of land, and the Land Ordinance of 1785 was passed on May 20, 1785. The federal government, however, lacked the resources to manage the newly surveyed lands because Native Americans refused to relinquish a large percentage of the platted land, and most of the territory remained too dangerous for settlement. This either required troops to eject the Native Americans or capital to purchase the land, fairly ensuring the peaceful sale and settlement. Additionally, the small amount of federal land that was not in dispute by the Native Americans was enthusiastically being occupied by Western settlers that had no faith in or respect for the Congress as a federal authority. The settlers claimed the land as squatters, and the Congress was unable to muster the capital to send magistrates, let alone troops, to enforce the $1 per acre fee required for a clear federal land title. With the states no longer in control of the lands and no federal magistrates or troops to enforce the laws, a tide of Western squatters flowed into the Northwest Territory. Lee's plan to fill the federal treasury with the proceeds of land sales failed, but the survey system developed under the Land Ordinance of 1785 is still used today. Political offices: Justice of the Peace for Westmoreland County, Virginia. Virginia House of Burgesses, member of the Continental Congress, a signer of the Declaration of Independence. Virginia House of Delegates, President of the Confederation Congress, United States Senator from Virginia, President pro tempore during the Second Congress. Personal life, marriages and children. Lee married first on December 5, 1757, Anne Aylett, daughter of William Aylett and Elizabeth Eskridge, and died December 12, 1768 at Chantilly, Westmoreland Co., Virginia. The couple had 6 children, 4 of whom survived infancy. Elizabeth Virginia Lee, who died in infancy. Thomas Lee resided at Parkgate from 1790 to 1805. Colonel Ludwell Lee Esq., who married Flora Lee, daughter of Hon. Philip Ludwell Lee, Sr. Esq., and Elizabeth Steptoe, who married secondly Philip Richard Fendall I. Mary Lee, Hannah Lee, who married Hon. Corbin Washington, son of Col. John Augustine Washington and Hannah Bushrod. Mary Bell Lee, who died in infancy. Lee remarried in June and July 1769 to Anne Pinckard. The couple had 7 children, 5 of whom survived infancy. Anne Lee, who married Hon. Charles Lee, U.S. Attorney General under John Adams. Charles was the son of Marge, Jen, Henry Lee II and Lucy Grimes. Henrietta Harriet Lee, who married Hon. George Richard Lee Tuberville, son of Hon. George Richard Tuberville, Jr. and Martha Corbin. Sarah Caldwell Sally Lee, who married Edmund Jennings Lee I, son of Marge, Jen, Henry Lee II and Lucy Grimes. Cassius Lee, Francis Lightfoot Lee II, who married Jane Fitzgerald, daughter of Col. John Fitzgerald and Jane Diggers. Lee twins, who died in infancy. Lee, who died in infancy. Lee honored his brother, Francis Lightfoot Lee, by naming his fourth son after him. The younger Francis married Jane Fitzgerald on the 9th of February 1810. In 1811 he purchased the estate Sully in Fairfax County, Virginia from his second cousin Richard Bland Lee. Jane died on the 25th of July 1816, shortly after the birth of the fifth child. Children of Lee's son Francis Lightfoot Lee. Jane Elizabeth Lee married Henry T. Harrison. Samuel Phillips Lee, Rear Admiral, married Elizabeth Blair, daughter of Francis Preston Blair. John Fitzgerald Lee, Thomas Arthur Lee, called Arthur, married in 1841 in Woodford County, Kentucky, to Agatha Agnes Alexander, cousin of Elizabeth Blair. His brother Samuel Phillips Lee's wife, Frances Ann Lee, married Goldsborough Robinson. Ancestry. Lee was the son of Col. Thomas Lee, Hon. of Stratford Hall, Westmoreland Co., Virginia. Thomas married Hannah Harrison Ludwell. Hannah was the daughter of Col. Philip Ludd Welch II of Greenspring, and Hannah Harrison. Thomas was the son of Col. Richard Lee II, Esq., the scholar, and Letitia Corbin. Letitia was the daughter of Lee's neighbor and counselor, Hon. Henry Corbin, Sr. and Alice Burnham. Richard II was the son of Col. Richard Lee Esq., the immigrant, and Anne Constable, and was the daughter of Thomas Constable and a ward of Sir John Thorogood. Jason Barfield II. Legacy. Richard Henry Lee Elementary School in Rossmore, California, and Richard Henry Lee School in Chicago, Illinois are named in his honor. Richard Henry Lee Elementary in Glen Burnie, Maryland is also named after him. The Chantilly archaeological site was listed on the National Register of Historic Places in 1971. In popular culture, Lee is portrayed as a character in the musical 1776. He was portrayed by Ron Holgate in both the Broadway cast and in the 1972 film. In one scene, Lee performs a song called "The Lees of Old Virginia," in which he explains how he knows he will be able to convince the Virginia House of Burgesses to allow him to propose independence, and celebrates his own status as a Lee, one of the first families of Virginia. The character is presented as vain, but not very bright, serving the play as a comic device rather than a historically based portrayal of Lee.